Good morning, Liverpool family. It's your boy, Wayne Wagner, coming to you live in your living room and or kitchen, or if some of you are braver than others, maybe you're watching this while you're taking a bath. I have no idea what you're doing, but it is week 2 of Coronapocalypse, and so far I've seen some really great things happening in our community, not only in our church, but in the community at large. I'll tell you this, the Liverpool Central School District is killing it. They are doing so great with our kids, and hopefully Beeville and the other school districts, you guys are having the same experience. I've been seeing a lot of really great things happening, a lot of really great things going on. I want to tell you some of the things that I've been seeing. One is this, and I think this is one of the coolest things I've seen, is that families are spending time together. Now, I understand that it's like a forced interaction and all that, but I'll take a blessing even if it is a forced kind of thing. But I think it's a really great thing, because if you have kids, they need you, and they don't need a shell of you or a shell of who you used to be. They need you, and so I think it's awesome that families are getting to spend time together. I've seen our church reaching out on Facebook and other social media saying, hey, if you need something, we have this. And I've actually gotten several phone calls of people telling me, hey, we have these kind of supplies if you hear of anybody who has any needs or anything like that. Food, toilet paper, teaching, all this stuff has been going on, volunteering. It's actually been really, really amazing to see all of this stuff. And so church buildings, unfortunately, are empty, but the church is still alive and the church is still thriving, even though we are unable to meet together. And I just think that's a really, really exciting thing, to watch humanity express kindness to one another and to see the church respond that way as well. No doubt in all of this there will be challenges. I think that steam will run out as all of this progresses, and all of the plans that we have and all of the things that we've been doing will eventually wear on us. Someone's color-coded chart will be balled up and thrown at someone else that they love, and there will be arguments and there'll be apologies. I think it's just the nature of it all. But here's something that I've been thinking about that I want us to really focus in on being during this entire Coronapocalypse thing. And it's just one word, present. I want us to focus as a church on being present. All of us, we're in an unprecedented period of time, and any of us, we have the ability to just check out of whatever situation that we're in, just zone out with the HGTV and seeing who's buying a house in South Carolina or whatever thing is going on. We all have the ability to be in a room and not be present. And I think if we do that, that's how the virus wins. That's how the virus actually defeats us, if we're with people but we're not actually with them. And I'll even take that another step further. I think that's how Satan wins. I think that's how Satan wins in this, if it is something that is actually used in the long term to be divisive in families, to be divisive in relationships. And so I want to encourage you to be present in all of your relationships, everywhere that you're at. Be present, be in the situation that you're in. Don't be worried about the next thing or whether or not Wegmans has chicken, because they don't, but just be present. And it will help you fight, as I have found, feelings of loneliness, of anxiety, of disappointment, discouragement, abandonment, and all that. And so I want to really encourage you as a family, as a church family, and as your family at home, and whoever you are with, to be present with them. Now, we are in week 4 of our series called MixTape, and what we're doing is going through the book of Psalms. And the idea of the book of Psalms is basically David's private journal, which eventually became songs of worship for us. Now, it is a great thing, and so today we're going to actually look at Psalm 40. But first, let me tell you something about me. I don't know how well all of you know me, but one of the most difficult things for me is waiting. Like, I am not good at waiting for just about anything in the world. It's not necessarily that I'm an impatient person, which I am, but it's more, for me, it's about not being in control of the situation that I'm in. A long time ago, about 5 or 6 years ago, I did one of those disc personality surveys, which those things are fantastic because when you read that, it gives you a clear picture of who you are in black and white, and it is like the scariest thing in the world to read about yourself and to read how accurate it is. So I want to share some of those things with you, what that DISC personality thing said about me and impatience and control. It says this, Wayne lacks the patience to listen and communicate with slower acting people. I mean, I don't know if that's true or not. It says Wayne has a tendency to be explosive in nature and lack the patience to negotiate. And it said, the last one, Wayne tends to be intolerant of people who seem ambiguous or think too slowly. Now, I think it's hilarious how accurate these personality tests can be, even though that one is completely wrong in everything. But actually, I do like being in control. I actually do like being in control of the situations that I'm in. But what I've learned is that when I force control into a situation, it actually isolates people. It actually alienates the people that I really want to be pouring my life into. And I've also learned that when I'm in control, it's more difficult for God to do what he is planning to do. And even if he was planning to do something in my situation, I would want to check his list before he started doing it. That's how control works. It is actually very ridiculous. At LCC, I used to have control, and I was involved in every single aspect of everything that happened at this church. I mean, literally, people would ask me, can I put more toilet paper on the roll? I don't know how that came to be, but I thrived in that time of control. I was like, well, yes, I think you can. It's probably the appropriate time to put toilet paper, or whatever it was. But all that did when I was controlling everything at this church and had my hands in every little thing at this church, all that did was bottleneck the church's growth at me, or at my ability, or at my wisdom, or my level of knowledge or ability to do something. About 6 or 7 years ago, I started to not do that so much. I started to release control and started to be more patient with people. And consequently, we have grown every year for the past 6 or 7 years. And so I think that there's something to be said when this church wasn't bottlenecked at me, and people like Amber and Kimber and all of our ministry team leaders were able to lead into and to speak into their ministries without asking permission from me first. Our church has grown in crazy ways, and it's no longer stuck with just me. Now, to a certain degree, I believe we all like to have control over our situations, and I think that has a lot to do with impatience. We want to control what we can control, and we don't want anyone else to control it. But, just like with me, when you're completely in control, everything bottlenecks at you. When we learn to trust, when we learn to let go, it opens up tremendous blessings that God can actually pour out on us. Blessings that we had no idea were coming, or no idea that were happening, because we were in control and couldn't see past our own selves. Therefore, it was more difficult for God to bless us when we are holding on, when we are having so much control in our life. Today's psalm, Psalm 40, gives us some insight into what God can do, or what God will do when we let go of control and we begin to trust in God. The key word for today is patience. Now, in Psalm 40, you can open up your YouVersion Bible app, or the words will be on the screen here as well, and you can just follow along with that. Psalm 40, verses 1 through 3, David says this. He says, I waited patiently for the Lord. He turned to me and heard my cry. He lifted me out of the slimy pit, out of the mud and mire. He set my feet on a rock and gave me a firm place to stand. He put a new song in my mouth, a hymn of praise to our God. Many will see and fear the Lord and put their trust in him. I want to break this down just a little bit for us. He starts off by saying, I waited how? I waited patiently for the Lord. I want to be as blunt as I can be, and I bet that there's a lot of people who will agree with me on this. Being patient sucks. It sucks to have to be patient. But I know that there is a truth behind that, and it's this. God cannot work when we are impatient. God simply cannot work in our lives when we are impatient. When we are impatient, we are the ones who are grabbing on for control. We are the ones who are trying to control God's blessings and tell God what he's going to do for us. And yet again, God's blessings bottleneck at our ability to tell the creator of the universe how to do his job. God cannot work when we are impatient. When we wait patiently for the Lord, it means that we trust him more than we trust ourselves. It means that we trust him more than we trust our money. It means that we trust him more than we trust doctors or the CDC or our government. It means that we trust God more than our wits or our ability to maneuver or even our ability to manipulate a situation to our advantage. When we wait patiently for the Lord to respond, we prove our trust in him over everything else. I waited patiently for the Lord. Then he turned to hear me, and he heard my cry. What does God do when he hears our cry? He says it in verses 2 and 3. He lifted me up out of the slimy pit, out of the mud and mire. He set my feet on a rock and gave me a firm place to stand. He put a new song in my mouth, a hymn of praise to our God. Many will see and fear the Lord and put their trust in him. When we wait patiently for the Lord, David tells us that he is the one who will lift us up. He, God, is the one who sets our feet on the rock. He, God, is the one who puts a new song in our mouth. He does these things. Him and him alone. And he does this when we are patient, not when we are controlling and manipulating situations. God does these things when we wait patiently for him and for his response. And God cannot do those things. He cannot do those things if we are impatient or if we are running off ahead of him. God can't or he won't lift us up or set our feet on solid ground or give us a new song to sing if we're not patient enough to allow him to do that. God is the one who does these mighty works in our life. He is the one who rescues us. He is the one who saves us. And then there's an unintended result. When we wait patiently for the Lord responds, he lifts us up, he sets our feet on the ground, he takes us out of the mud and all that stuff. There's an ancillary result that I think is fantastic, and David says it right there at the end of verse 3. Many will see and fear the Lord and put their trust in him. People will see God working in your life and in my life when I wait patiently for him rather than run ahead of him in the scurry of this life. Impatience proves that we don't trust God, but patience proves that we do trust God, and our friends, our family, our neighbors, our co-workers, they will see that in us. They will see God working in us. Listen, the action of patience proves our trust in God. The action of patience proves our trust in God, and it releases the bottleneck of our control. This is where we need to be, waiting patiently for the Lord. This is the sweet spot. This is the goo inside of a Twinkie. I mean, this is the top of everything that we need to be. And so I want to call it active patience. A lot of people, I don't know if that's an actual thing, but I'm full of just making stuff up because, this is what I do. So here's what I want us to do. Here's what I want to encourage us to do. I'm going to give you 3 things to do while you are being patient, and we will call that active patience. The first thing is this. while you're being patient, pray. While you are being patient, pray. Now, okay, so coronapocalypse is happening. We're in a pandemic. Ain't none of us ever been in a pandemic. And in ministry, what I have seen over and over again, I've seen it time and time again in my 24 years of ministry, somebody will say, oh, I'm going to pray for you. And then you see them a week later and you say, oh yeah, I forgot I was supposed to pray for you. Or something like that happens where we make these declarations about how we're going to pray for somebody, we're going to pray for a situation or whatever, and we actually don't do it. That is useless. That is absolutely useless. And so I want to say, while we are being patient, I want to encourage us all to pray and to actually do it. Now, here's my big thing about prayer. Don't overcomplicate it. In fact, don't complicate it at all. It is just talking to God. You can do it with your eyes closed. You can do it sitting or standing. You can do it while you're showering. And you can do it in all kinds of other situations. Okay? You can pray at any time. And here's what I suggest you telling him. Tell God about your fear. Tell God about your anxiety. Tell God about your worries. Tell God about your doubts. Tell God about your stresses. Give all of that to him. Give all of that to him. Ask for strength. Ask God for greater faith. Ask God for peace, for comfort, for even, dare I say it, patience. Ask God for all of these things. I believe this from the bottom of my heart. The best thing that we can do while we are being patient, and probably any other time, is pray. The best thing that we can do is pray. You do what you can do. You deal with what you can deal with, and everything else, you just hand that over to God. You give that to him, and you do that through prayer. So, first part of active patience. While you're being patient, pray. The second thing is this. While you're being patient, set realistic expectations. Set realistic expectations. Now, I have to say, and I may get in trouble for this. Glad that there's not a lot of people here right now. But I have to say this. I love all of the color-coded charts that everybody's been posting online. I don't know if you've seen this, like everybody's going to do this thing and this thing and this thing, and it's all these goals and all this stuff. Now, I love it. I think that those color-coded charts are great, and I think that they can keep you on track. However, here's what I without like trashing anybody or anything, that's not my deal here, I would just say this. Don't be embarrassed if you have to scrap that piece of paper and start over. All right, we're going to be trying to set realistic expectations. So I love the organization of a color-coded chart, but don't be embarrassed if you have to scrap that, throw it at your husband's head, and start over. Whatever that thing is, just don't be embarrassed if you need to start over. Now, for many of you, those expectations very well may be realistic, and if so, that is awesome. But I want us all to remember that that stuff is just a guide. It's just a guide. So you may need to switch up your plan, right? You may need to switch up your plan. You may need to drop back and punt. And I want to say it is totally acceptable to change your routine and to change your plans and to go back and set more realistic expectations for what you want to do. Listen, just because you've said it, just because you've posted it and you got your 63 likes, it does not mean that it must continue if it's not working. If it's not working, start over, set more realistic expectations as you go on. Listen, you are allowed to cut yourself some slack. You are allowed to cut yourself some slack. And each of us needs to set expectations that are realistic in our own lives. Because here's what happens. We get all these ideas, right? I'm going to do this thing and that thing, and I'm going to do this other thing, and it's going to be great. And then we're going to go pick apples in the fall, and it's going to blah, 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 all these things. And what happens is we create these plans, and we create these things in our brain that we want to do, and then we feel like terrible if we are unable to accomplish this impossible list of things that wasn't possible when we wrote it down in the first place. You know, we do this at work sometimes. We create a to-do list that would take 73 hours during that day to get accomplished, and then you feel like a failure because you weren't able to accomplish a to-do list that was unaccomplishable in the first place. So, I don't know why we do that. I don't know why we set expectations so high that Jesus himself cannot meet them. But I want to encourage you, during all of this coronapocalypse and everything else, and even beyond this in your life, set expectations that are realistic, and when you need to, cut yourself the necessary slack. Number 3, while you're being patient, don't compare yourself to others. Don't compare yourself to others. You will never win. And even when you win, you lose. Comparisons create a place where you're either choosing the false idolatry of self or the idolatry of someone that you imagine who has it all together. They don't have it all together. They're on their third color-coded chart, just so you know that. But we have to understand comparing ourselves is a lose-lose situation. We either become idols of ourselves or someone else becomes an idol and better at what they do than we could ever possibly do. Comparing yourself to others means that you trust your ability to get something done more than you trust God to do what he has already promised to do. Or worse than that even, you trust somebody else to do what God has already promised he would do in your life. Comparisons lead to unhealthy lives, both physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Listen, the thing that I'm taking away from this passage, the thing that I think we should realize is this: only good things come from waiting patiently for the Lord. Only good things come from waiting patiently for the Lord. And the reason for that is extremely simple. God is only good. He is only good. God is only good all the time. God is only good all the time. David also wrote in Psalm chapter 40, verse 5, he said, "Many, Lord my God, are the wonders you have done, the things you planned for us. None can compare with you. Were I to speak and tell of your deeds, they would be too many to declare. Were I to speak and tell of your deeds, they would be too many to declare." I want to put that to the test. I actually want to put that to the test. And so all of you who are in the room right now, hi. But everybody who's at home, in the comments below, I want us to do everything that we can to prove David wrong. And I want us to just name the good things of God, the good deeds of God, the things that God has done in your life. And to coin a phrase from like a long time ago, since I'm a boomer apparently, Kimber, is I want to break the internet with comments. Let's break the internet with comments about God's good deeds. And let's find out if it's true that there are too many to declare. Let's check that out. Let's see if that's actually accurate. So in the comments below, write all of the good things that are going on in your life. Think about that stuff while we are being actively patient, praying, setting realistic expectations, and not comparing ourselves to others. Now, at LCC on a regular basis, every week, in fact, we participate in what we call communion. Communion is difficult right now because likely you did not have a supply of little crackers and grape juice, and if you have kids and they've been home, that stuff is gone. So here's what I want to encourage us to do this week. For communion, in fact, right after this, find if you can get a cracker or a pita bread or something like that, or even a hot dog bun, whatever it happens to be, grab that thing, grab some juice. Hopefully you can find some juice. It doesn't matter if it's apple or cran, pomegranate, or whatever it is. Find that, maybe sit down by yourself and just take a moment to remember that Jesus is still in control. Jesus is still in control of everything that's going on. Jesus is still in control of this world. And take that time to remember the great thing he did when he went to the cross and his body was nailed to the cross. And then take that juice, whatever that happens to be in your life, take that juice and remember the great thing that Jesus did when he went to the cross and died, and his blood was shed so that we might have our sins forgiven. Take some time to do that. Take some time to break the internet. Take some time to pray. Maybe go back and set some different expectations in your life. And just realize, man, you don't have to compare yourselves to anyone else because Jesus has already done all of the work to give you the value that you have. I want to leave you with that today. Hope you have a great Sunday. We are going to have one more worship song, and I hope you can stand in your living room and sing this at the top of your lungs and worship Jesus from wherever you are today. Thanks. Thank you so much for joining us today. I would like to remind you that our church still exists and things are still going on here. And here's a statistic that I learned this week that I want to let you know about. 40% of the giving that comes to Liverpool Christian Church happens on Sunday morning. And so I understand that we're not meeting on Sunday morning, and so potentially our church could take a 40% hit in the giving. I want to just let you know that stat because I think it's important, but I also want to remind you that we use an app called Tithely, TITHE.LY. You can get there from liverpoolfamily.com. You can get there from the Google or any other. You can use Alta Vista if you want, but you can find Tithely anywhere. You can find Liverpool Christian Church. You can set up recurring payments, and you can help support the ministries that are still going on here. Also, you could send it to 2021 Cold Springs Road, Liverpool, New York, 13090. Now, I will add one little piece to this. And I didn't prep this, so here goes. If you are laid off from work, if you are unable to work, I know we have a lot of people in the restaurant industry who are unable to work, and food service, and now that apparently all non-essential jobs aren't going to be able to go in. And so if you are laid off from work, I want to encourage you, do not stress about your money. Do not stress about your money. I want to encourage you to trust the Lord with everything that you have, and whatever happens, just keep trusting him through all of that. I am not saying that I want you to make a choice between chicken and Liverpool Christian Church. I need you to take care of your family. I need you to watch out for them. I need you to make sure that they are fed, and trust Jesus to multiply everything that you do with your money through this time. I want us all to be trusting Jesus and giving ourselves to him over and over and over again. And I want our church to continue beyond the digital era of Corona-apocalypse, okay? Have a great day. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me, wayne@liverpoolfamily.com. Or if you want, you can text me or FaceTime me at 315-935-9660. Have a great day. See you soon. Hopefully.